So while we're waiting for everybody to file in, let's do the typical RASC welcome. Put your name, where you're tuning in from. I always like to ask, what is your skies looking at like right now as they're getting clearer? And have you seen the moon lately? There's another one.
I decided to get us started with the wonderful gray skies of Montreal.
Partly cloudy here in Kitchener. What about you, Bettina? Where are you tuning in from?
I'm also in Montreal, and I'm looking at the same gray sky as you are. At least here it's not snowing.
Yeah, at least it's not snowing.
Winnipeg is inundated.
Clear and sunny.
David and Randy have nice skies.
There's our no. The other day it was sunny and clear all day, and then as soon as it gets dark enough to start observing, clouds. I told people at Insider's Guide to stop buying telescopes.
So it's cloudy in Guelph too. So then, my parents at least know what I feel like. But I was mentioning to one of our local astronomers that while it's cloudy and gray, we should all go and buy equipment because, then we can just blame it on that.
For sure. Somebody in my the NOVA program just bought a Astro camera, so we're blaming it on them.
And Anne, I'm very glad to hear that things are a little bit better in Winnipeg than what the forecasts were showing.
Mm-hmm. We'll give about 30 more seconds as people continue to file in, and then we'll get started. Give you some leeway. We're also live streaming on YouTube, so if you lose us on Zoom, we're always there as well. Or vice versa, we're on Zoom, so you can always move from YouTube to Zoom. We are checking the chats in both area. I'll wait till it gets 6:03. Oh, and one more thing, we have, if you're on the chat, just remember, if you want to say something to everyone in Zoom, change to everyone, and it's automatically set to host and panelists. If you want to just talk to us, you can do the host and panelists. Okay, let's get started. Welcome to Sketching the Moon. This event is co-hosted by RASC National and RASC Montreal, but we have a star, which I'll let Kareem introduce. If you don't know me already, I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator for RASC National Office. I co-host Insider's Guide to the Galaxy on Tuesdays, so that's probably where you've seen my face before, as well as other RASC National webinars. We also have the wonderful champion of outreach, as I like to call him, Kareem Jaffer, from RASC Montreal here. Oh, my name is Samantha. Yes, if I missed that. My name is Samantha. And I will let Kareem take away. He was the one that organized this and connected us to Bettina. So I'm going to let him introduce Bettina. And
I will introduce Bettina, but before I do, I want to mention to everyone that this is part of what RASC is doing with the Canadian Space Agency to help celebrate the Artemis missions. And Samantha has set up a wonderful area on the RASC website where you can get resources about the moon, but also some of the areas where you can give in your own material to help celebrate the moon. So we'll be talking a little bit about that with the lunar sketches today. Creation Station is for kids, and it's going to be relaunching a second series of Creation Station on International Astronomy Day on May 7th. And we're also going to be doing a live webinar on May 7th. So Samantha, did you want to walk through the website with everyone before we go in?
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll start with that. So as Kareem said, humanity is going back to the moon. We're having our first stage of the new lunar exploration program. The CSA reached out to us and asked, hey, let's celebrate across Canada. This is super exciting. The first time we've been back to the moon in 50 years, and Canada is heavily involved in it. So this is just one part of the series. And so we have set up at RASC is a website that you can go to to get all the information we think you would ever need about our celebrations, about the moon. And I'm going to share this. So if you go to rasc.ca/Artemis parties, you get the landing page. And we have a lot of different options here. You can learn about the Artemis program. We'll go to the moon theme events, sharing the moon. We're looking for your moon related content, which hopefully at the end of this webinar, all of you will have some because you'll be sketching along with us. You can also join a local center virtually or in person. The next one that's happening, we've had a lot already. Toronto, you can go back and look at their recording on RASC Toronto's website. Excellent program that they held last Saturday. And this Saturday, we have RASC Victoria is hosting a virtual moon party. On May 7th is another big thing that we have coming up. So far, we have RASC Victoria, RASC Ottawa, RASC Montreal, and there's more people more centers throughout May starting to plan events, which they're all having their own star parties, both in person and virtual. And then RASC National, for those people who can't make it out to those, will be having a huge celebration, tuning into their parties, as well as just celebrating Canada's role in space and the moon. So I definitely encourage you to check out this page and find an event near you to learn way more about the Artemis program and the mission and what we're doing back on the moon and how Canada's participating. We also have Discover the Moon resources. These are just all the places you can go to learn more about the moon, what the Artemis program is. Also, we have a whole stage where we've amalgamated every little resource we have about viewing the moon. And then you're here, you're interested, we have Sketching the Moon resources. We have tutorials written and video, including an online webinar that Bettina did previously with the Ontario Science Centre. We will also be linking this webinar here after it. And we have reference images for you to practice. So there's tons of different things for you to look and just celebrate this new stage in space exploration, because this is the launching off point to go to Mars and beyond. Finally, we'll share this a little bit later, but this is the place you can submit your moon-related images, and we really love to see what you have at the end of this webinar as well. So we hope that, like this one, you continue to participate in these celebrations, you learn a little bit, and you just get excited about this new age in space exploration. I have read so much about it in the last couple of months, and I am pumped for the next 5-6 years. We have incredible things coming.
And then we'll leapfrog past the moon and move into the rest of the solar system, hopefully. So this is going to be fantastic. It's a great setting ground for us to start really exploring the solar system. So we are really excited today to have with us one of our former presidents from the Montreal Centre, a local artist. She's working right now as a doctoral candidate in art education at Concordia University. And I first got to know Bettina when we were reopening our RASC Montreal Centre I.K. Williamson Library at John Abbott College. And I invited Bettina to come and give our keynote talk. And she did this wonderful talk on her project on Women with Impact. And then this Women with Impact was the sketching of craters named after women, of which there are only 30, which is very sad to see on the moon. And she had this exhibition, which was, it went up at the Cosmodome here at Montreal at the Rio Tinto Alcan Planetarium. She's shared her exhibitions and her work and everything across the world. I mean, we don't get to keep her in Montreal. In fact, Bettina is currently the director of the Artist in Residence program at SETI Institute, which is the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So we are really fortunate to have Bettina with us tonight to talk to us about sketching the moon. And she's going to lead us through a workshop for really an accessible and approachable way for even people with as poor skills as myself to learn how to sketch moon craters. So Bettina, we are all yours. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. And yeah, I remember that that chat, and I love that library. The RASC Montreal Centre has a beautiful library, so it's absolutely wonderful. And thanks for the kind introduction. Indeed, what we'll do today is a pretty loose sketch, something that maybe you could do at the eyepiece. So I'm going to show you. You will see me. You see my hands here. You also see my hands here. So I'll be sketching here. This is a sketch along. If you have art materials ready, good for you. If you have an HB pencil floating around there in your desk drawer and a sheet of paper that you can pull from your printer, that's all you'll need. But I will talk you a little bit about art materials and sort of a step-by-step instruction and how to best, particularly to sketch moon craters. So most of these tips are for sketching in general. I spent enough years in art school to, have a couple of tips there, but there are sort of specific hints that help you at the eyepiece. So Karim talked a little bit about the women with impact. So this is also, I think, the image that we used for advertising. So this is not what we'll be doing today. This is super detailed. I'm going to get a little closer from the camera. Everything is kind of mirrored. Okay, so here. So this is super detailed. The reason why you won't do something as detailed is two. One, you're sitting down. This takes a long time, like a couple of hours, and it'll probably be cloudy by the time you get halfway through. This is too bad. Two, because it takes such a long time, the shadows on the moon actually change. They move around just like they do on Earth. And then, once you would sort of finish drawing this part and you get to this part, all the shadows will be wrong and this will be kind of incoherent as a sketch. So if you want to do something this detailed, work from a photo. I use the LROC site, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter camera. It's a wonderful resource. Or you go to the RASC Montreal Center or the RASC website that we just saw and download a couple of images, which is what we'll be doing today. But yeah, these are a couple of the women with impact drawings that Karim mentioned. The only 30 craters on the moon, this is like barely 2% of all craters on the moon are named after women, which is pretty sad. Hence my drawing spree to highlight women's contribution to science. This is more the kind of stuff that you'll probably be doing. So these are, you may recognize this if you're doing the Isabel Williamson Lunar Observing Challenge, and also sort of the Explore the Universe has some challenges. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing at the eyepiece. And, like this is just regular paper. Here I used actually some drawing paper and I cut that out and I printed the whole Lunar Observing Challenge on drawing paper. It's a little hack if you enjoy drawing. And I find taking photos is great because it's super detailed and it's fast. But the thing with drawing is that you'll just understand and remember what you're looking at a lot better if you're drawing. When you're making a shopping list and then you go shopping, you forgot the list, but you still remember everything that you wrote down. It's because, you wrote it. And this is like another form of writing. Think of sketching as another form of writing. And this just takes like, 15 minutes. It's pretty straightforward. But a really good way to understand what it is you're doing. Here's another really nice lunar drawing template that I suggest that you download. But this is more what we'll do today. So today, what are we going to do today? I've done Archimedes already. Plato's really cool also. This is a great beginner one. Really nice cratering there. I think Posidonius, that's a real good challenge. It has a lot of detail. But this is more like for an advanced sketcher. Today, what I'm going to do with you is this one, Azakel, because this crater has everything. I mean, it has beautifully terraced walls. It's got a central peak. It's got a nice little secondary cratering. It's got a weird little rill going on. I mean, what more can you ask of a crater? It has everything. So this is what we'll be doing today. Let's start with, I'm just going to shimmy over a little more. Let's see if you can still see me. All righty. So we're going to start with looking at some drawing materials. Like I said, if you have just like an HB pencil, something resembling like this, totally fine, and some sketching paper. This though is an actual drawing pad with some sort of nicer drawing paper that has a little bit more bite, so you get more graphite on the paper. So let's talk a little bit about pencils. So the HB pencil is the one that you'll know, HB, yeah. So this is what you know, but pencils come in different grades. So this one, for example, it says, let's see if you can see that. I'm gonna just roll it around, it's hiding. Okay, this is a 6B. So this one is a lot softer. So we'll start just with the HB. And what I'm doing is I'm like pushing really hard. And then I'm sort of letting go a little bit, less pressure, less pressure. It's also a nice exercise for you to do, just to get the different tonalities of gray. So this is kind of what you can do with like a regular HB. That's pretty good range. Now let's get this guy. You see the difference? This is super dark, super duper dark. And you get it paler like this. So this is excellent for moon crater shadows. So if you want to draw some shadows that are super black on the moon, and you feel like doing a little shopping spree to an art supply store, get one of those. On the other end of the spectrum are the H's. So this is a 2H. You can see it there. And those are really hard. So H is for hard. And I'm pressing really, really hard. And you see not much blackness is happening here, but I'm getting a really nice gray out of this. Also, you'll see that the lines are a lot finer. So architects like to use these because they are more precise. So these are great for details and for, like, you know, the kind of where the crater wall, where the light hits the crater wall, and you want to keep it nice and light. So you get nicer grays with these than with those. So let's, this is 2H. This is the HB. It's also called a 2B, same thing. And this is the 6B. They actually go down to, like, this is a ridiculously soft one. This is an EB. And it's really, really like sticky. And this is super black. I love this one. So I recommend that you maybe go and splurge if you feel like drawing moon craters is a thing. Actually, look at this. And this is only part of my pencil collection. I know it's insane. Some people buy a lot of telescopes. I buy a lot of pencils. I guess that's a cheaper hobby. While we're at it, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how to hold the pencil when you're drawing. So when you're writing and drawing, this is fine if you want to do detail work and put more pressure, but there's another way to hold the pencil. If you hold it more like this, so kind of flat, and you draw with the flat side, you get a nice even gray. This is great for crater floors or the area around the crater if you want to go even and fast. So this is, so you have different kinds of mark making. So you have this, and then you have this. So I think you should practice both of this. And you can also, when you're holding it like this, sort of have nearly like calligraphic images. So this is, again, different kinds of mark making. And this is great if you have like very sort of like rough, jumbly terrain, and you don't want to draw every little detail, and you just want to give like an impression of something that is really rough. You can do that. So experiment with the way that you handle your pencil. It doesn't just all have to be like nice and tidy like this, like you've been taught to when you're writing, but now we're sketching and you should mess around a bit more. A word about erasers. These erasers are great. Let's use those. Nice and soft. These erasers are horrendous. Those little things that they stick to the end of your pencil are dried up, and all they do is just basically like make a big fat mess. And I think they should be disallowed in general at the end of pencils. So do not use them. There is something really fun if you are a pencil nerd, or you're going to like dessert and you're buying one of those, you know, like this pencil kits. This weird thing keeps on showing up. What is this? It's very sticky. It looks like silly putty. And this, in fact, is an eraser that you can shape into a little point. And then you can do like little highlights if you want to do that. So really handy. Or you can put it flat and then you can sort of lift off areas without rubbing it. Mostly these are used for charcoal, actually, because charcoal, you can't erase charcoal with a regular eraser. But I love them. They're also great de-stressors. So, you know, splurge for one of those. You can also get erasers that look like a pen. If you see this, this is actually not a pencil. That's like a little eraser. Those are awesome. They also dry up really fast, but you can cut off the dry end. So that's not a problem. So for highlighting, also really good. What else do I want to show you? Ooh, I nearly forgot. This thing is phenomenal. This is a pencil without the actual wood around it. So it's just the pure graphite. And you can't, this one is pretty soft. This is ridiculously a 9B. When I went to art school, they only went up to 6. Now they go up to 9. And so what is cool with this one, I'm going to just take a little water. This one is water soluble. Look at that. Okay, I'm making a big fat mess, but this is really cool. Suddenly you're doing an aquarelle, but you're losing all your tone. Okay, I'm just gonna blot that. All right, let's actually start on the craters. Drawing materials done. Crater. Step 1, let's look at our crater. And you're obviously not seeing it like this. You're seeing it through an eyepiece. So this is kind of a handy little trick. You don't need to do this. Like this is just for like demonstration purposes for right now, because what I want to give you is like at the eyepiece experience. So you're going to see your crater like this and not as a like in a nice tidy rectangle. That's a really great advantage actually, because you can use the circle like a clock to orient where your crater features are. So this is, say, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And then you can say, okay, I'm looking at this. We always make things too straight and too centered. So if I'd drawn this straight off, I may have put that central peak in the middle, but it's actually not. So you can sort of draw that line down. So like, so it sits a little off to the side, and this is more toward 3 o'clock. Got a bump here, a nice little secondary crater on the rim. That's more like at 11 o'clock. And then you can start sketching that in accordingly here. And this is a really helpful device. Is there a way to enlarge this camera view? I can maybe get the...
I got it. I pinned you into a bigger view.
Oh, okay,
now.
cool. Yeah.
So
okay.
they can see. And just a reminder, everyone, Kareem sent in the chat a quick, the images we're using here. You all have a PDF of it in the chat as well, both on YouTube and on Zoom. So if you want to look at this reference on your own screen or on your phone screen or something, that is also available there.
That's fantastic. Let me just prop the side up a little bit more, because I realized I made a nice color copy, which is shiny. Now you're getting glare. Okay, I think this is better. Okay, cool. So step 1 is the framing. Let me just see if I can get, we're gonna do RASC, but just for another creator, look also at imagine you're moving your eyepiece around. Look at what's around your crater, and if you can use that for your clock, it's like you can position this to be at 12 o'clock, and then that gives you a really good reference. So use your eyepiece like a passe-partout, like a framing device, to help guide you and set you up for the best kind of sketch that you can do. So, okay, by Posidonius, you're too tricky. Okay, we're gonna stick with you. Okay, framing, done, step 1. The next step is doing the outline. So I see one of the biggest problems with people who are starting to sketch is that they're getting into details right away, because it's very satisfying to get into details. But what happens when you get into details right away is, it clouds over. All you've done is kind of like half a little, secondary crater, and everything is just clouded over. So what you want to do is just take your HB pencil, which one I'm going to, they're both HBs, I'm using this one. Take your HB pencil and then just look at the largest feature. So what we want to catch here is the basic shape of the crater. This one is actually pretty easy. It's kind of nearly round, but it's not exactly round. It's got a little flat side here and a little bit of a flat side here. You want to get the central peak. You want to get those little secondary craters, that lovely rill right here, and the crater here. And then it's not a very dramatically lit crater, but we've got some nice shadowing here. So you can indicate that and use very soft lines. Don't press really hard. I'm just gonna start with this guy. So don't press hard, because this is the time when you can make mistakes. And then you take your lovely eraser, not the one at the end here, but like an actual eraser, and then just make some adjustments. And so I'm actually, because what time do we have? Okay, it's 6:25. I'm not going to go super detailed. I'm going to just speed across the process just a little bit. What do we have here? This is a really nice area. Nice thing going here. This is like a teardrop shape. And just sort of move along. Just imagine that you're sitting outside. It's June, the mosquitoes are sucking you dry, and you don't want to be outside forever. And you just want to get this down. What do we have here? That's a lovely area here. This is a really nice wrinkly area. Lots of great shadowing. So I'm just doing like a rough sketch. I think this is the central peak right here. So I'm tracing in the shadow as well, like this. I love shadows because they really give you a fantastic clue of what the shape of things are actually like. You know, you have something that looks completely unassuming from up top, and then it casts this huge shadow and go like, oh, this is actually a huge thing. All right. And another thing to really notice, especially and this crater gives you, it's a great example of looking for where the light comes from. So obviously the light is coming from here, catching this side of the crater wall, catching the central peak, but the rim of that little secondary crater. So it really tells you which bump goes out and which bump goes in. So that's really something important to pay attention to. So we're going to just, this is the basically inner part of the crater. And then we've got those little bumps really here. And this is a really lovely little feature here as well. So the instinct is just to go round, but it's not round. It's just like this, and then a bit like a wavy shape here. So we'll do that. Okay. This is kind of,
So Bettina, are you focusing more on the shadow areas when you start to do these outlines first, or is it both shadow and highlight areas?
It's highlight areas as well. So I'm outlining where the crater floor is. I'm outlining the rim, and then any like actual nice shadow areas. Let me see, like if I was doing, for example, Play-Doh, I would sort of, you know, I would indicate where all these shadows are as well, plus this area, plus this area. So any like big features, put those in right now. So you get your proportions right. You get your proportions right really quickly. So this is the, that little rill here. I love the rill. It's got a little crater there. Okay, I think we're nearly done. How long did this take? That took like a couple of minutes. And even if it starts raining at this very moment, because, you know, Montreal and the Montreal Nebula, we've got enough information down that you can say, this is the crater, right? We're good. Okay, outlines, step one. Also, these are really lightly drawn, they're very easy to move around. You just, you know, erase and you go over. And, you know, it's pretty good. Okay, step one, that's step two, outlines, done. Okay.
I'm just gonna jump in. I encourage everybody to follow along and show, I am drawing too. So if you see me looking down, hopefully you will see my terrible creation compared to Bettina's at the end. But yeah, please follow along, have your pencils and pens, and hopefully we all get sketches out of this.
That would be phenomenal. Yes, yes, please share, don't be shy to share.
One of the neatest parts was if you heard Bettina as she was going over one of the rims, she all of a sudden said, oh, there's another crater here. You learn so much about these targets when you're trying to draw them that you would not realize when you're just looking at them.
Absolutely, because what you're really doing is you're observing. And the Lunar observing challenge, I mean, it's an observing challenge, it's in the name. And to be able to draw something, you need to understand what it is you're drawing. So it really helps you to understand the structure. So I'm a big fan of drawing, obviously. All right, so here, step 3, we're already at step 3 out of 5. Let me just move this to this. Okay. Now we're going into the shadows. So your first instinct might be just, we've got it all lightly drawn in and just go with the really light colors. The reason I'm encouraging you to go really to town on, use your softest pencil or really sort of press down hard with your HBs, do the dark shadows right now. One, like I said, the light just moves around on the moon faster than you think it does. So the sooner you start putting down the shadows, the better. At least you've got those locked in. Also, a common, I hate to say mistake in art, just like a little calibration error when you're drawing, is if you start too light, like let's say if I just used like a very light gray here, like that kind of gray, like I'm just using the HB and I'm not really pressing very hard. I'm just doing some, but that is actually a gray, right? It looks really dark right now because there's nothing else on the page, but it's really a gray. And then means that when you're actually doing the grays, they're going to be too light and everything's going to be washed out. So you really need to go all black. And remember that on the moon, there's no atmosphere. So unlike here on Earth, the light doesn't diffuse at all on the moon. And that means that all the shadows in the vacuum are like super, super black. And this is why I go like full on 6B, like bring it, press as hard as you can. So I'm gonna go really, and you see how dark that is? That is super dark.
We have a question. Oh, Kareem's typing it.
Yeah.
Often see moon sketches without the field stop. Do you typically draw the circle in, or how do you define the area you're drawing?
So I do 2 different ways. When I, for something like this, if I'm working on a Lunar template on here, you've already got the circle drawn in. So I use it. And I'm looking through my eyepiece. It's already around. So that's what I do. But for the more detailed work, like this, and hang on, I had also the, let's see, from the Explore the Universe. Yeah. So this, I just used the full page because I wanted to annotate on the side and I wanted a little bit more space. So this is just, you can do it any way you want, depending on whether you're just on the sketch pad or if you're doing a log. I like to take a circle, or you can take like a masking tape and just like, sketch around, or a plate if you have it, if you want to go big. And I'm just going to sharpen this pencil. And it's really up to you, whatever helps you sketch better. And if you're practicing for sketching at the eyepiece, I suggest that you go with a circle. But that's a great question. So you see how dark we are. I'm looking at the time. Okay, I'm speeding along a little bit. So I'm getting here that these nice wrinkles, and they're kind of intricate. I feel like I do that one too. A little bit too fat, doesn't matter. It's a nice fat circle. Alrighty, so this goes, oh, that's like a little thing that rocks out here. Okay, and just a little bit here, shade that. And already I find that when you bringing in the shadows, already your drawing really comes to life. I really love that graphic contrast. I'm going super fast, like really like you'd be balancing this on your knees when you're out on your with your telescope with that red light dangling from your neck. That's
almost giving yourself when you're practicing, if you give yourself a time limit, that might help you when you're actually doing it at the eyepiece.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really great idea. Got the rill there. What else is really dark? Got that. Okay, I think I pretty much with all the dark stuff. And I'm always using this same image. So if you're not as fast as me, you just, you do you at your own speed. Just open that. We're getting that nice. Okay. Shadows done. Next step. Now we're getting into the grays. So you've got your shadows. So you've got your lightest point, which is the paper. You've got your darkest point, which is your shadows. And now you can go into the grays, which is kind of the in-between. And that means that your drawing is beautifully calibrated. So if you're looking at the grays here, it's actually pretty nice. It's not a very dramatic crater actually in terms of grays, that it's pretty much the same gray everywhere. But if you look at the quality of the gray, it's very smooth here on the crater floor, really drumbly and around the crater. So this is more like a wrinkly terrain. It's easy to get lost in those little wrinkles and try to sketch like each little one. That is the amount of detail that'll drive you absolutely crazy. So just do this kind of weird, more calligraphic drawing, mark making for that kind of terrain. But I'd say just to calibrate the gray, just start with the smoothest gray that you can find on the crater. And here it's the crater floor. So this is where we'll start. I'm just using that technique where I'm just holding it sideways and it gives me a nice, smooth, even gray. And then depending on how much you press down, the darker it gets or the lighter it gets. So I'm just gonna lay that down. And if you have light areas like here, that central peak, remember not to go in there. And if you do, you just take one of those little erasers and you just take that back out. It's easier just to leave that, leave the white, so paper. Okay, crater floor here. And don't worry about the details. We'll do details later. So right now we're just looking at the grays. Let's see how does that look on screen. Yeah, it looks decent on screen. It's a little patchy. So if you have a paper that has a lot of bite, a lot of grain, you will get, that texture will come out right now. You get those little white bumps. And if you don't want them, if you don't want little white bumps, there's a hack. I call this my gray hack. You take after you've done this, you take your 2H pencil. Your 2H is very hard. And if you go over it with the 2H, you get rid of the little white bumps and it gives you a really nice, smooth gray texture. So I love doing this for smooth crater floors. So do this double whammy of the HB and then I go over it with the 2H. And this gives you a lovely gray. And that's also roughly the right tone of gray. Because it's like, if you were on the computer and were doing this digitally, I'd say like this is more like a 50% gray, maybe even a 60% gray.
Bettina, there's a technical question. Maury's asking if you've ever used a pointillist technique with rapidograph pens.
Oh yeah, I used to do that in art school. It nearly made me quit art. I don't have the patience for it. You can do it. I've seen good results with it, but it just takes forever. This is the kind of stuff that you could do really well, like at home, kitchen table, rainy Saturday afternoon, and you're working from a photograph, that would work. But this would not work in the field.
What about shading or blending stumps or for blending the areas?
You see that I do not have a blending stump. They are totally fine. Use them if you like. I grew up in a household with artists where blending stumps were frowned upon because it's like you're just being lazy. So you need to learn how to do proper shading. So I don't use them because I know my mother would just, send me evil vibes from Germany if I dared to do that. But use them.
That means Maury is bringing you nightmares as well as offending your parents. He owes you a coffee for that.
Agreed. Agreed. But yeah, I mean, they will work nicely. They do really rub the graphite into the paper though. And so if that's also an effect that you want, that's fine. But I just I don't know. I just try to just use different grades of pencils and sort of get the same effect. So now I'm going around. So I'm noticing that this side of the crater wall is a lot lighter than that one. So I'm leaving that for my this part here for my HB and for my 2H. I'm just doing the darker shading here, getting in there. Going around the room.
Randy is asking, he typically sketches when he's at 150 times magnification, so the field of view is around 3.3 degrees.
Okay.
What magnification do you typically view at if you're doing it at the eyepiece?
I go for like all I have. I took to put my super plus a Barlow lens. Like I go as close as I possibly can. So that I really want to get the as much detail of the crater as possible. So then the disadvantage, of course, is if you have like a Dobsonium, you're always nudging that thing along because you know you're looking through the eyepiece, it drifts through. You're trying to remember that little secondary crater that you're trying to sketch. You sketch it, everything has moved, but it's totally worth it because you're getting all that lovely detail. And it's also, you know, like a good memory exercise. You really need to observe, commit to memory, and then sketch it down.
Michael wants to know if you compensate or how you compensate for the movement of the moon due to rotation. And you had mentioned the lengthening of the shadows so quickly.
Yes.
Do you compensate for it, or do you simply try to do the outside sketches first and just stick with that?
Yeah, I do my outside sketches, and this is why I have this sort of pretty rapid drawing technique, because I can get the sketch done before the shadows have moved so significantly that it becomes a problem. So I don't like to go back into my sketch and move things around. What you can also do, take a photo and then use that for a reference if you feel like you didn't get your drawing finished before it started, you know, drizzling, or your feet are so frozen that you need to go inside. And then you can just work from your own photograph, and that's always a good option as well.
Can I just say how impressive it is that you keep drawing while you're answering our questions? Like, I have no idea how you're able to do that.
Years of practice, Kareem, 5 years in art school. And like, you know, like I said, my mom is an artist, and we've got artists in every generation. So I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. That is just like, it becomes second nature to you. And whenever I want to understand something better, I just draw it. That's how I start. So I'm just, actually, this area here is also still pretty dark. So I'm just.
When you were talking about holding the pencils differently and playing around with it, I could just hear my kindergarten teacher screaming in my ear saying, "No, hold it properly."
Well, properly for drawing, for writing maybe, but drawing, there's so many different ways to, and actually this is one thing at art school that you do first, is unlearning all the nonsense you've been taught before about how to hold your pencil. It's like, you hold it any crazy way you want.
We do the same thing in intro astronomy, is unlearning all the nonsense.
There you go. There you go. So we pretty much put all the grays down. And again, you know, this is a quick sketch, but it gives you the idea of what it is we're looking at. We've got all the important features down. There you go. Make this a little bit more explicit. And got that nice little shadow here. And there's like a little banana shape there. Put that in. Okay, gray's done. We've got the grays done. We could probably go a little, you know what, I'm going to go a little bit darker here on this side. I feel like this gray here, just a little bit darker. But I think we've got pretty much our grays sorted. Okay, so that just leaves the final step. And that is details. You see, now we're doing the details, the thing that I told you not to do at the beginning. We're doing it now. You've got all your grades down, and now, you know, your feet are not frozen yet. You still have blood in your veins. The mosquitoes left you alone. You got another like 10 minutes, and so you go like, okay, what else is here? So now you're noticing that all these little tiny craters, you can put those in here. And this is what brings your drawing alive. So what you learn, and what I was also told in art school, is when you're looking at a piece of art, the thing that you saw first is the thing that was painted last or drawn last. So this is the thing that people go like, oh, look, you know, look at all that detail. Isn't that lovely? But this is the thing that you put in the last like 10 minutes. And you see there's a little bit of a bumpy terrain here. That's nice to put in. And this is what gives your drawing character. Oh, and I think I want to not just leave this white.
So you might want to give a piece of advice here to Rajkumar. He mentioned that he feels like he'll have to watch the YouTube video again because he doesn't feel like his looks like a crater, unlike yours. But I remember the first advice you gave me was not to worry if the first time it doesn't look like what you think it'll look like, just keep drawing.
Exactly. Because it's, you know, imagine you're doing any kind of sport, you know, like the first time you were on hockey skates or the first time you played tennis, you know, you weren't great at it. So you're not going to be great at this, you know, right off the bat. So you just need to practice and you'll get better. You get better fast. People think they can't draw. It's just because they don't practice. You'll be totally fine. Just keep going. Try again.
Emil was asking which pencil you use for the fine craterlets and the details.
This is, now I'm using the 2H. This is the 2H. So it has a nice fine point, and it doesn't matter how hard you press down, like this point just doesn't wear down, and it's very nice and detailed. Oh, actually for those little secondary craters, I actually just use the HB because I wanted to get a little bit more darkness. What I got here, that's a little one here as well. I feel like, oh, there's a little arm coming out of the that will actually, I'm gonna put that in. And I think then we're getting pretty close to done. I may just adjust a couple of the shadows here. I think I could be more detailed and precise. Okay. And then you, at one point, you just have to know when you're done, because you can also overwork it. It's okay if it looks like spontaneous and it has a little bit of like rough and unresolved edges. I find sometimes people get so hung up on the details that at the end their sketch kind of looks dead. So it's okay to have some sort of roughness, as long as what you want is the proportions need to be right, the shadows need to be where they ought to be, get all the major features in. So it's like drawing a portrait of a crater, right? So you want that crater to be recognizable, and everybody goes, oh, this is Artemis when they look at it. That's what you want from your sketch. And also, you know, like help you understand it better. All right, okay. I think I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. And how long did this take? It didn't take long at all. What, half an hour at most?
Yep, okay. 35 minutes,
yeah. Half an hour.
Alrighty.
I am amazed because I've been looking down the entire time, like listening to you verbally and trying to do mine, and I'm like the thing is like, where did that come from?
Ta-da! Yeah. All right.
Beautiful.
So there's a little bit of bonus content. I want to talk to you about some other art materials, and the reason is I'm going to go back to my women with impact drawing, because we've got to. I'm just going to take like just a few minutes. Here where it's really, really dark. So this is a print limited edition actually. But on the original, I used not pencil for this part. I used acrylic paint. And I was going to show you acrylic paint that may be fun for you to use. Put this under other art materials. Pull up. So if you're in the art store anyway, and you're buying new pencils and maybe a funky eraser, go and see if you can find, this is liquid or fluid acrylic. So you'll know acrylic paint that comes in tubes. That's great, you can use that too. But I should have brought, okay. Okay, so this just squeezes out and has the consistency of, I don't know, cream cheese maybe. So to make it flow well on your brush, you're gonna have to add water to it, and that's fine. But you know, they are kind of gloopy edges. And remember what I said about shadows on the moon. They don't have these edges. So if you use fluid acrylics, they are fluid not because there's water in it, because the polymer to suspend the pigment is more viscous. So look at that. Look how nice that is. That gives me a kick every time. So this is how I did the moon shadows on my drawings, because it is a lot darker and more velvety than, let me see, get my darkest. This is the 6B. You can see the difference. This is now gray. What you thought was like, ooh, super black, is not actually black, because graphite, it's a metal and it's shiny, and it'll never give you a complete black. So if you want moon shadow black, which I think should be the name of a color, get these. So Golden makes these. They're a bit more expensive because Golden is like artist grade. How much did I pay for this? I can't remember. The bone black is pretty good. You'll see here that it's not fully opaque. The carbon black is better. That gives you a nice full-on black. So I use those a lot for sketching moon craters. You could even, when you've done your drawing, this is not going to stick, but anyway, you could go in and just go over and for some like extra kick. So you know what? Now you're doing multimedia. You sometimes see that in, like, contemporary artworks, and you're like, oh, this is kind of multimedia. So this is
Bettina, I think you need to put out your own line of like creator specific art materials.
That would be awesome. I would be so up for that. And there would definitely be a color called moon shadow black.
Samantha, do you think the RASC shop should have something like this down the road? Hint, hint.
I mean, I think it would be really cool. I am such a supporter of art and like STEAM going together, and this is just perfect.
Yeah.
This is, I think everybody can do it, as you said, and
Yes.
people who may not be on the art side of things, as you said, it's a really good way to notice the details and observing. So even if you don't get a beautiful artwork, it just gets your mind going to see what you're actually seeing.
Yeah,
you become a better observer.
You can become a better astronomer, and you become a better artist over time. And also, typically your drawings not as bad as you think they are. If you look at them again the next day, they're not that bad. It's just that you've seen the thing that you wanted to draw right next to it, and you see that gap, right? And it's like, I didn't do what I thought I should do. But then you come back to that next day, it's like, you know what, that's not so bad. That's pretty cool, actually. I should do another one. So you see, now I started with my acrylics, but you can see the difference that it makes. So maybe splurge for some acrylics as well. All right, that was the last step. Ooh, stuck together. Oh, I did want to mention this. Look what I prepped here. We've got a lunar eclipse coming up, May 15, 16, overnight. So if you want to take photos, that's great, but you can also sketch along. So what I did is I prepped my little moon sketches, a bunch of them, and then imagined that it is, you know, at the lunar eclipse, and then you can go and fill them in. So this was just done with the 2H pencil, and I went over, and that, you know, I don't know if it's at 11:15 it'll look really like that, but you know, you put the time, and then this is just done with colored pencils, which I know you have at home, and so you can just sketch along between all the, you know, you take your photo, and then it's like you just sit around. So do some sketching in the meantime.
Totality might last long enough for us to do it live too.
Yeah,
it's 4 hours of total from start to finish, from Eastern Canada. So
yeah,
we have a question in the chat that I might be able to answer, as well as, except I'm not the same artist. But if you tuned into our Moon at News series, somebody's asking about digital drawing. You probably noticed that I actually shared my iPad screen on a regular basis. Almost all of my digital, up until this point, I think this might be the first moon crater I haven't done on an iPad. And I do the exact same steps. I know I'm such a modern generation, so millennial. And basically, I use Procreate, which is a paid app, or you can use Adobe Fresco is the other one, which is a free one. And you go through the exact same steps. If you have the pencil, they simulate the blending tools, they simulate the erasers. What I did is I would do it directly on those PDFs, or I'd put them into the app. I would have the circle, I would draw the outlines, and then I'd go sit and watch Doctor Who for 2 hours and sketch and shade and do all the extra stuff. And I mean, mine are not as beautiful as this, but you can use any of the mediums you'd like. Bettina, have you done any digital art?
I actually use Procreate as well. I love Procreate. I do use it a lot. It's a wonderful little program, and I would have done it. I could demo it, only I'm using my iPad right now to film this. So, but yeah, I highly recommend Procreate, and it's really nice because you can have different layers and switch layers on and off, so you can try stuff. And if you go like, oh, I wish I could go back in time, you can, which you cannot do with the analog stuff.
That's what I really found for me a barrier with art. As soon as I could just double click undo, I feel so much more free in digital art world. You know, it's less scary.
Yeah.
I did promise people I would show them mine to make everybody feel better. That's what I just came up with. It's online because I took a picture on my phone, but that's what I came out of this session drawing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a smaller, I think this pencil set is either from the dollar store or something similar. I've had it for years to the point I don't know where it is from, but I haven't even sharpened them once. So very simple. I didn't have the wide variety that Bettina did, but I did have some tube up from B and HB is what I had.
That's excellent.
Yeah, there's
good job. All right.
Thank y'all.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody, don't be scared. We want to see your images. We would love to see what everyone can do and accomplish and what they see.
Shall I show mine?
Yes, please.
Yes, I
So
will. I'm just gonna spotlight.
I didn't do mine in real time. I did mine a little bit earlier, but
all right. Very nice.
Oh, nice.
And this is after a couple of years of practice. I'm finally starting to catch some of the texture and get some of the details. Don't give up. Like I've never considered myself an artist, but it really enhances what you're seeing by a lot. It really changes the way in which you look through the telescope.
Mm-hmm. I'll do one more quick thing too as well. I'll show you what I've done digitally. This is my digital art. I did a lot of the smudging tools on it, but this is what I've done on Procreate. So it is possible to do similar stuff. It's probably one of my favorites here. I forget what the craters are, but you probably.
Oh, I love that tech. That's beautiful. It's very atmospheric.
Yeah, and this is done. These were done from. These were done from eyepiece views. These weren't done based on another one. So they're not as detailed, but I still got I did the shadows and the highlights, and I don't have extreme power on my eyepiece. So a lot of them, they didn't get as zoomed in, but it is possible, everyone. So
I may just share a couple of things. I'm actually teaching after class, like 6 and 8 year olds about space and astronomy, and I have them do keep a logbook, so they write every day what they see and things. And I started actually sketching. This is all naked eye observing where the moon is and what it looks like. So this is my view from my window. And I think that's also a nice exercise, just to go outside and see where the moon is every day, because I'm asking the kids to do that so they can track how the moon changes position every day and the different kind of phases. So we've got a lot of cloudy days. So there's like more like a gibbous moon, and I bring these into the kids, and they really get a kick out of seeing the drawings. Like the little ones go like, oh, that's not a photo. It's like, no, my dear, this is a painting. And you can learn to do that too. Moon behind the clouds, because you get a little bit more like an atmospheric feel for the observing session. So I just thought I'd share those as well. It's more analog stuff.
Bettina, Emil wanted to know if you've done any deep sky sketching. Do you do any nebulae or any galaxies?
Yeah, I've done that as well. I use black paper for that, and a white crayon or white charcoal. I really love doing it. I've done like star clusters, and yeah, I did the Explore the Universe, so it was mostly drawing stuff. I printed myself out the entire list of objects, and sort of went to the copy 2000, had it spiral bound with the black drawing paper in between, so I could go out with this little set. I maybe even have it. Hang on, I'm just going to roll over and check if I have it here. One of these. Oh yeah, look at that, observing challenge. Let me see what I've got. This is just a white one. Yeah.
I love deep sky sketches because it really gives you a good idea of what actually they look like in the eyepiece that you don't see as often.
Exactly. So this is like this when I had my little meat ETX. So there wasn't really, yeah, like I could barely see anything, right? Like it's like a 3.5 inch. But hey, this is where I started to notice that you learn a lot more when you have a pencil in your hand, because it really forces you to look. And if you've not drawn it correctly, it's because you've seen it incorrectly. So it shows you how your brain is, how your mind is thinking, how your brain works.
We have a couple questions in the chat. We have a couple more minutes before we're going to close out. But okay. In terms of we see a lot of fine art. Do you use any other mediums to create a space or astronomy related things? What are your other main projects you've done in this area? I'm also sharing Bettina's website in the chat.
Okay, yes. So if you go to my website, and also if you go to the Artist in Residence program, I do a lot of sketching and painting, but I also do other things, like my latest project involved 3D printing. So the Women with Impact drawings ended up being 3D prints. I have a little 3D printer myself. And I'm also working on making shoe soles that have integrated moon craters. So when you walk, you're stamping moon craters into the ground. I call this project One Small Step, like one small step for womankind. And yeah, if you read Leonardo Journal, I published an article about that project there that goes into more detail. So it's a combination of performance, so critical theory, and 3D printing. And I also printed a whole bunch of exoplanets. So if you go on my website and you check out Exoplanet Zoo, that is another project that I worked on. That came out of a residency at the Montmégantic Observatory.
Which we're going to have you back to talk more about. That was an awesome project.
Thanks. Yeah, I exhibited that in St. Petersburg last year before everything went sideways with Russia. So I'm glad that I got in there in time.
There's a couple of questions about the 3D effect and separating the crater floor from the wall so that you can actually see where one ends and the other starts. And yeah, there you actually get a lot of the science of the crater starting to come out in the artwork as well. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so that's really important that you, and I've done this here as well, that you draw the area around the crater, because otherwise you don't get that area where the crater starts, right? And it just looks like, well, in my Women with Impact series, actually, and I did it, but that's mostly because—
Samantha, can you change the spotlight?
Yeah, sorry. I'm holding up stuff again.
Oh, sorry, that's my fault.
For the Women with Impact one, I really wanted to emphasize the shape of the crater and how they are all different. So I stopped at the crater rim, but this is because it was mostly supposed to work as an artwork that, with a lot of detail. And so that was like the intent for that series. When I'm doing sketching at the eyepiece, and I just want to really help myself observe, that's when I always put the area around the crater. So don't forget to do that. So it gives the crater context, and that's what creates the 3D effect.
So I just want to remind a couple things. If you want to see Bettina's whole Women at Impact, all of her sketches, they are on her website. They're beautiful. I fell in love as soon as I stumbled upon them. And I'm like, I'm so excited. I get to be on a webinar with her now. She's so cool. And I hadn't even met her yet. And she's even cooler now that I've met her. But as the other thing is, we'd love to see your sketches. You can choose to share them on social media and we will repost them and see them that way if you would like. And the link that Kareem, and you can do hashtag Lunar, RASC Lunar sketching, hashtag Moonart, and tag RASC on whatever social media website you're on. Perfect. Thank you, Bettina. And so we can look those up and share them. But you can also share them on that Google form we sent that website, which is rasc.ca/sketch share moon, share-moon. Kareem sending it again, sharing moon. And we encourage you to this link, not only send your sketches, but if you have videos of the moon, photos of the moon, like pictures of you at a star party, everybody's looking at everything, share that with us. We'd love to share it on our social media. It'll be going on our website, and we'll be sharing it at our national webinars and things like that during our celebrations of Artemis, because we want to see everyone's view and what their view of the moon. We're not going to take our beautiful NASA pictures. We want to see what the moon looks like and how you feel about it. And sketching is just another way to share that. So I'm just going to change the view back. That is my two piece, but any last comments, Bettina and Kareem, before we sign off?
Well, I just want to thank you again for inviting me. I hope everybody's just at least tries sketching at the eyepiece once. Just give it a shot. I think you'll find that you're much better than you think you are. When I did the Lunar Observing Challenge, we had a Lunar Observing Challenge group when I was RASC president, just to keep ourselves motivated. And very often when we met, it was cloudy, and I said, guys, come on over anyway, and I'll teach you how to just sketch the craters. And at first they were going like, oh, I can't do that. And in the end, it's like we were all just drinking tea, and all you could hear was the squishing of the pencils over paper, and we could hear a pin drop. And everybody did really well and better than they expected. So I think just try it. Just try it, and you'll find that you're better than you think.
I think post-COVID, doing some of those sketching nights is going to be a nice way to get back into that social atmosphere. And I do want to mention to everyone the Explore the Moon certificate, Explore the Universe certificate, the I.K. Williamson. If you actually have the drive to do the larger set of lunar targets, really do go after these observing programs, because it really does enhance the way in which you look at the night sky. And thanks for joining us. Look up, enjoy reading about the Artemis Challenge. And Samantha, thank you for having us with you for this. It was great.
Well, thank you for bringing this, and we're so glad we could host it at a national level for everyone. And I thank everyone for coming, Bettina in particular, and as well as all of you. We hope you got a lot of value out of this, and you've learned something, and you'll take these skills on into the future. I know I will. I've learned quite a bit. So I will let you all go. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it is nice weather and you might be able to get out tonight and view the moon. So thank you all.